Okay, in this video, the latest news about the casting of Spock in Star Trek Discovery. After this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and thanks to Daniel's Hot Topics, we have a couple of things we wanted to put aside before we get started about Spock. In his post, he was asking about an article that was written about two possible names for a future series, either with Khan or with Picard. And the names were Destiny and Reliant. Now, Destiny, I believe, was a name of a ship. I'm not certain about that. We know that Reliant was in two different places. One of them was, of course, the starship that Khan appropriated in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and also was a ship that Picard mentioned that he had served upon earlier in Starfleet. Before he became a captain. So there are two things there. And now, since the new Picard series is going to be 20 years after The Next Generation, it's unlikely that we're going to see Picard in a prequel type of thing unless they do it in flashbacks. And I kind of doubt they're going to do that. My guess is that they're going to do something forward, and hopefully that it will not dwell on anything that's happened in history, because right now I think that we have been over-prequeled when it comes down to it as far as Star Trek is concerned. So these two names, however, are not an uncommon thing to see in television programs. In order to make sure that somebody doesn't jump on the title before they're able to make some use of it, they throw out a number of ideas and then they will lock in titles so that they don't come up with something embarrassing later. For instance, in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, the original name of the movie was supposed to be Star Trek II, The Revenge of Khan. But about that time, as they were talking about that, Star Wars with Return of the Jedi was about to come out, or in production at that time, and the leaked name of the picture, which was, I think, supposed to throw people off, was called Revenge of the Jedi. And seeing Revenge of Khan, Revenge of the Jedi, they thought there'd be some concern of confusion, and so Star Trek changed it to The Wrath of Khan, and Star Wars changed their name to Return of the Jedi rather than Revenge. And according to what we've heard about them, is that they intended for it to be Return of the Jedi all along, but they leaked the earlier name just to get people off the track. So I don't attach anything specific to these two titles that have been locked in. As Patrick Stewart said at Star Trek Convention Las Vegas, there were a number of ideas kicked around. So it's not surprising to me that they may have thought of a couple of titles that they thought they would lock in before going any further. So that may be all there is. We may never see any of that any more than we ever saw Star Trek Phase 2. They came up with a name, but then their minds changed from making a TV series to making a movie in the case of Star Trek The Motion Picture. So it's early in the game to say that that's what the two titles of any of the future Star Trek projects are going to be, but we wouldn't be surprised to see them jump up here and there. Now let's get to the real news that just came out a couple of days ago, as they've announced that Ethan Peck is going to play Spock. Now, as you can see, he does look enough like Leonard Nimoy. In fact, Leonard Nimoy's family even posed with him to show that, he's approved of by them. Adam Nimoy and Terry Farrell, who he recently married, Jadzia Dax in DS9, and Adam Nimoy, the son of Leonard Nimoy, and other family members there fully approve of his casting. He doesn't look unlike Zachary Quinto either, so it's kind of a nice bit of casting. He's young enough to play a younger Spock, so that looks like a good piece of casting. There are a couple of things that you need to know about him, though. We know that he's already acted in several shows and movies, usually in small parts. He's best known to 10 Things I Hate About You. But we also know that he is the grandson of Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck, who was a great actor out of the golden age of Hollywood. One of the most recent films that he made before he died was MacArthur, which was one of the better war movies out there. And he also played in a smaller science fiction program called Marooned about a spacecraft that loses power out in the middle. This was before Apollo 13, so it was kind of an interesting bit of projection of a problem happening in space. At any rate, Gregory Peck played in those and many, many other movies. Ethan Peck comes from a good pedigree, shall we say, a Hollywood pedigree. So what do we know about this in why they have announced Spock's character? Now, previously they have not said anything about casting of anybody except for Pike and Number One. And both good actors playing those parts. And you can be certain that because they've announced both of those, they're going to be in several episodes. And it was my guess earlier on that because Spock had not been cast, that he would probably be like Luke Skywalker in the last Star Wars picture, where you wait until the very end of it before you see him in about 15 seconds of film. And in this case, that was what I was thinking about Spock. The whole season would be looking for Spock. Now, they've cast this guy, and that means that they're going to make more use of him. So maybe he's going to come in near the middle of the season. They've already started filming, so it's likely that they'll film their first 5 shows and then have a break and then go and film the rest of the year. And it would be my guess that they would put Ethan Peck in the latter part. So in the same way that the first season of Discovery had the Klingon War and the second part had mostly the Mirror Universe, we'll have the first part of this season likely being the search for Spock and the second part something else. So obviously this overarching story of the red things, why is everything we don't understand called a thing, said McCoy in Star Trek the Motion Picture. So these things, which we theorized in a previous video that might be or might not be the Borg, but it has been theorized that that could be. So there could be 2 big stories going on here, and they've decided that they are going to resolve them at different times. They're going to set this up, they're going to give us Spock midway, and then they're going to resolve that story. So it looks like it's going to be an interesting season. If you are willing to give Discovery a second chance, maybe this is going to be a better season. We know from experience that first seasons of shows, TNG was not very successful in its first season. Voyager kind of limped along in its first season. People weren't warming up to DS9 as well in its first season. So with all of this, are we willing to give Star Trek Discovery a second season and a second chance? I'd be interested to know what you think about that. Also, if you enjoy these videos, I hope that you will click a thumbs up and also subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click the bell so that you can see when the next video comes your way. Until then, don't go far.